Welcome back to the FloTrack podcast. I'm Kevin. He's Gordon. FloTrack podcast at gmail.com is the email address. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and on the website flotrack.org/FloTrack podcast. Gordon, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Doing good. Another week. First week back from vacation. Even though I had to do a pod every day on my vacation, you're welcome. Now I'm back to work. So after this pod, I can't just go hiking or to the beach. I have to actually stay on my computer, which is unfortunate. But it's okay. It's okay.
And we can now officially start the countdown to Lincoln's return. We're 5 pods away. We're 5 pods away.
Pods.
I mean, unless he changes his mind in terms of how long he's going to be gone, it's 5 days until Lincoln comes back.
Maybe we can make a deal with them, like kind of how I did pods over vacation. Like maybe, hey man, you can still do a 9 a.m. pod. It only takes an hour of your time. Go hide in your shed with all your wife's art.
Oh, it's $8,000 shed.
$8,000 shed, and just do a quick pod. That's all we asking.
Yeah,
just do a quick pod.
Yeah.
But
I
then
think
the question
we can
is,
get through this.
Here's the thing, though. We're both going to be like, all right, oh, Lincoln's back. I don't have to do a pod, but one of us still has to do one.
He's going to do it solo. We already talked about that. Okay. Well, I think you and I can do one more week, because here's what we got going. We got the Monaco Diamond League meet on Friday, which there's a lot to talk about with those fields. So we'll have a preview on Thursday of that. We have the On Athletics Club being rolled out today, which gives us stuff to talk about. We have an AAU star being born over the weekend. We have the MAC canceling football, which means an excuse to talk about your favorite topic, the NCAA, and whether or not we'll have cross country this year. Those of you not watching, Gordon has put his head in his hands. There's actually some stuff. I know some people are winding down their seasons. We have the Continental Tour kicking off tomorrow, live on FloTrack with the meet from Turku. So there are some stories. Last week was a lot leaner. This week I feel confident we can do it.
Yeah. Notably, we got to plug our own event, man. Continental Tour live on FloTrack. It's the first time that a World Athletics event is live on FloTrack in the U.S. So U.S. viewers get a chance to watch the Continental Tour. Turku is the first one coming up. I believe that's tomorrow. But then we have I can't even say. I'm not even gonna try to say the names. What are the other cities? The one that has a lot of weird letters in it.
Next week we're going to Hungary, Gordon. We're going to Hungary.
Yeah. What's the name of that
one? That is a city that has a very long name that I won't go into right now due to time constraints. But that one has got some big names on it. Tomorrow, I was looking at the start list. That 100, Christophe Lemaitre, CJ Ucha, Richard Kilty. In the high hurdles, Pascal Martineau Lagarde running. Remember, he got his medal last year in Doha, so he's one of the best in the world. And then on the throw side of things, it's Finland. Right, they got a deep tradition in the throws, so you can see a good discus competition, good javelin competition across the board. So, European track kicking off. I guess European track's been going on, but it's like full pro level with multiple countries, European level track going on now, which is exciting.
Yeah, and it's exciting, and it's super. What's the word? Not ironic, or makes sense. What's the word? Makes sense. Or like I'm really bad at this. Damn it! Oh God! All right.
All those words are good.
It's not ironic. Or no. Okay. I'm
just go for it. Just go for it.
I can't think of words. Of course, Bowerman Track Club decides to end their season right before the professional season begins. It makes sense for their Jerry Schumacher to be like, for a team that races 3 times a year to do all their races in 1 month. And then as soon as the rest of the world starts to race, they're like, okay, we're done. What are your thoughts on that?
Brand.
What are your thoughts on Bowerman? Very on brand. That's what I was thinking. It's on brand for them. What are your thoughts on Bowerman doing their 4 or 5 meets, a couple races where they were jogging 800 meters, but then shutting it down officially in early August?
I mean, based on how well they were running, I'd love to see them in Monaco. I'd love to see them in that field. I'd love to see some of their 1,500-meter runners get in that race. I know they haven't done steeples yet, but there's a good men's steeple that is going to take place. We know, the Pete Julian group is going out there. Engels is in the 1,500, Brazier's in the 800, Raven Rogers, I believe, is in the K, Shannon Robury. So yes, it's disappointing. It's definitely disappointing. Now, this year of all years, we'll give them a mulligan. I mean, I will, just because, hey, travel is difficult, travel is strenuous. However, I will say, I didn't know we were going to get that last Bowerman meet on Friday. I thought the last one was the one before that, when we had what do we have? The 4x1,500 meters. So I was holding off judgment until the complete end of the year. But man, I wanted to see Shelby Houlihan run a mile or another 5,000 or a 3,000 or a 10,000, anything other than an 800, And on the men's side of things, I mean, an elimination 2K is fine if we've already got our fill of other stuff. Like, that's a cool, like, hey, look at this quirky thing that we're doing. But I still wanted to see those guys rip a fast, legitimate time. And we didn't get to see it in those last meets.
I want to see them race people that aren't on their team, like that aren't on their side.
Fair.
Right? It's like, yes, it is. There's an element to track and field where it's fun to see time trials and time chasing, because racing the clock is a great challenger. But like, we want just like, it would be great to see them racing like a Paul Chalimo or racing someone from Julian's group. And I mean, they literally had a track meet the same day in the same city as the big friendly. And it's just like, why don't these guys run together? I mean, I guess Jerry loves controlling situations. I mean, he's notorious for wanting to like skip Milrose and go run at BU instead type stuff, where he's like, hey, it's not about, I would rather just control the situation. But I guess, the only thing that Bowerman definitely put on a show. Don't get me wrong. The times they put down were amazing, and it's very incredible, and they deserve a high five and pat on the back. I guess the one other element we just were looking for was to see them just like beat someone or lose to someone, and we didn't get to see that.
Yeah, and in place of that, if you're going to do time trials, I wanted them to keep going. You can't do the 14:23 Houlihan race and Mohamed busting through 12:50 and say, "Oh, that's it. Now we're going to do some relays and some elimination 2Ks." It's like, no, keep going. You guys are in the best shape of your life. Mohamed's elimination 2K, I don't know if you watched it, was particularly funny. If people don't know how that race goes, it's who's ever in last place when they cross the finish line each lap gets eliminated. But Mohamed's so it's kind of tactical. Everybody bunches up, and then there's a furious kick in the last 100 meters, and they bunch up again. Mohamed was in such good shape, he made that race not fun at all because he just started beating everybody. They couldn't catch him. He just ran out front. So people were getting eliminated behind him, but it was like driftwood. He was just so far in front. It did not even matter at all. And then Shelby's 800, I think she could have broken 2, but she went out in 57, which might have been too quick even for Houlihan. So she wasn't able to break 2 minutes. But yeah, I don't know. I just want him to take the governor off and just go for it. Stop. I know caution is how they operate, but I wanted them really to just let loose in these series of meets because they had all of it under control, and maybe that would have been a reason why they could have gone a little farther. But yeah, I'm thankful as a fan, I'm thankful that we got at least 2 of those meets that were interesting, but it just made me want something more from the other ones. I'm guessing that's how you feel too, along with the competition.
Yeah, but it's okay. I mean, can't have everything in the world.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. Well, part of it. Yeah, but I mean, would you be? I just think we're going to look back in a couple years when some of these athletes' times plateau or slow down, and I think one of the big questions will be like, man, you look back at their times and their season best. Like 2020 was when they were really hitting on all cylinders. Like, should they have raced more during that time? You've set a yawning record, by the way, in this episode. I think that's like 4 yawns, and we're
Dude.
What are we about 8 minutes in? You got to talk about something else, I guess.
Well, don't you think it's a little also kind of mean to say like to tell Mohamed and Shelby Houlihan, who just run 12:47 and 14:20 something, be like, can you just go faster for us? Like they're kind of like, hey, I just like did a huge PR. Like, why you asking me to go faster? Like,
no,
you know
I'm saying
mean?
look, we're fans of the sport, so we're completely unreasonable. That's fair. That's a fair thing. I didn't even need like one of the options. Yes, run the race again and try to go faster. But another option would have been just to do another event or some event where it had some sort of meaning or had some sort of ability to either break a record or look at, add to your resume. Like Mohamed is great, but I think beating his teammates in the elimination 2K, it was fun, but I don't think that adds anything to his resume. Same thing with Shelby in the 800. I mean, maybe if she went out and ran like what would Shelby have had to run in the 800 for you to have been like, whoa, this is I'm looking at like this adds something. This is like a resume builder for her.
157.
Right. Yeah.
Not even 158. 158 be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You're really good.
Yeah.
157, I'll be like, whoa.
But I don't know if they were. I guess I don't get it, and we'll never get a chance to ask Jerry because he doesn't do a lot of interviews. But it's like, why not go for the 3,000 meter women's record or the mile record for the women, right? And if you want to avoid going after the 5,000 because you feel like you've already accomplished everything you can in that event, why not go to a different event and try to knock off some time? I just think it's funny. There's no rule that says you can't do the same event multiple times in a time trial, but that's just kind of how they operated. Like we need to switch every single week. It's like the opposite of high school where you run the exact same thing all the time until you want to smash your head against the wall. But I don't know. Again, they did more than a lot of other people did, and they're a big enough group and they're a fast enough group to where they can generate headlines. So it is better than nothing. But if you told me it was after that third one the third one was really good. Yeah. I don't remember if it was the third one or the second one. If you said, yeah, they're gonna do 4 more races other than the little jog things that they put on, so that way people could get their allotment of races. The 4 main marquee races are going to be a men's 4x1500, a women's 4x1500, a women's 800, and a men's elimination 2K. I think people would have said, well, let's do something let's up the degree of difficulty a bit more because they're that good and because we think that highly of them. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's good. Good take. Good take.
Yeah, you're trying to be nice to everybody. That's weird. That's a really different path for you to take. Interesting.
I know. Did you get excited about? Were you enamored? Enamored? Oh my god, damn it! Enamored with AAU? With AAU this past weekend?
Well, the one performance that caught my eye, Arian Knighton, a rising junior, so he's still sophomore for record purposes. 20.33 in a 200. This was one of those where as soon as it happened, I had to check the video. I had to check the results. I said, well, what's the wind? What's the wind? Where did he start? Was this a Lyles at the Inspiration Games situation? But he ran the full 200, and I was mighty impressed. I don't follow the prep scene that closely, so he was not on my radar just because not many high school kids are. But 20.3. I mean, you don't want to get too excited because there's a long road ahead and you don't want to put too many expectations on it. But when he came off that curve, the way he ripped off that curve, it reminded me of, well, guess who it reminded me of? It reminded me of a very fast 200-meter runner.
Bolt?
No, I won't go that far. Lyles. It looked very Lyles. It looked very Lylesy. Okay. Didn't it look kind of Lylesy to you? Because I've seen, and you saw Lyles at this similar age, so you can compare them a little bit. We don't have the historical knowledge, like, oh, it reminds us of this of a young Carl Lewis. It's like, well, we weren't watching a young Carl Lewis, but we did watch a young Noah Lyles, and coming off that curve with that tenacity and the way he looked like he looked like he was speeding up as he was going. Just that reminded me of Lyles.
Yeah. I mean, and 2033 is no joke. I mean, that's like a time that would like be potentially like top third, top 20 in the NCAA, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're running that
Yeah.
time, you are like considered like potential All-American talent, and to do it as a sophomore, I mean, 2 more years. Question is, do you think that a lot of times I always think about this, AAU can sometimes, over race some of their athletes and maybe they get burned out early. I mean, like Tyrese Cooper, he was like the star of AAU, but running a lot of races and hasn't been able to like put together a post 18-year-old type performance.
Mhm.
Because he's kind of potentially, I mean, we don't know yet, but he potentially may have peaked in high school with his times because he was running great 45 seconds, 20.0s.
Mhm.
The question is, do you think, hopefully, he stays under race that he can be a 20-0 guy going into college and then develop even more, and then hopefully by year 2024 is like in the conversation with the Noah Lyles and Colemans of this world. Uh, that's the only thing. When you see a young kid, especially a sprinter, run so fast, so young, you kind of think like, are they using up everything in their engine? Well, that's the word. Using up everything in their gas tank too soon, emptying the gas,
Emptying the tank. Yeah, yeah, and
emptying
that's what I
the tank.
say. You heed caution with all these performances. And 2033 right now obviously isn't fast enough to be elite. It's not as if he's running a time that okay, you could plop that guy into a US final and he'd be there. But it's the fact that he's still got 2 years of high school left. How do you feel about the IAAF scoring tables? Do you like those or no?
I like them when they benefit me.
Okay.
When they benefit my
So
take.
so a 2033 is worth 1,169 points on the IAAF scoring table. What do you think that equates to for a mile?
403.
A 403. He just broke the sophomore class record. And he was 2/10 from Bolt. 403? No. 352.
Oh, we're okay. Well, I was thinking like 20 flat is like 356, so then point 0.3. I don't know. I
Okay.
wasn't
All right. That went
I don't
that
know.
went another direction.
I don't have the scoring tables memorized, man. Too many tables and
No, but
charts to
just
keep track of.
but just think of
So it's
it, and I think that might be
I
a
don't
little
I still
optimistic.
I don't
Yeah.
think 20.33 is equivalent to 352.
No, I don't either. I don't either.
That doesn't
I
make
think
any
that's one of those.
sense.
Yeah, yeah. That one's a little wonky. But
Because
it's
like
definitely it's
there's only like 3 Americans who are running like 352 or faster. And there
yeah.
are more than 3
Well,
Americans who can run sub 20.33.
yeah, but
That's
you're retrofitting it to Americans, which is the problem, right? Because Americans are disproportionately good at the sprints and not as good in the distances, specifically when it comes to these time trials. But
okay. Well, no, but like if you look at just like world lists, how many people ran faster than 2033 in the world last year?
no, you're right. It's a little too quick. It's a little too quick, but it's definitely sub 4, right? I mean, it's definitely a uh, we get hung up on the sub 4 being the end all be all. I mean, the tables have sub 4 basically equivalent to like a 10-4 in the 100 and a 46 mid in the 400, and those performances get beaten resoundingly every year at the high school level.
Okay, so like
But
about 50 people in the world ran 2033 or faster. And then in
in
the mile,
2019,
yeah. And then let's
okay,
do 1500 because not everyone runs an outdoor mile.
no, I
Top
think you
50
should. I think
mark, top 50 mark is 336. So,
that's
and
that's pretty
336,
close. Yeah,
yeah, I guess. I think yeah, you're right. How Americans don't try to run fast in the mile, whereas the East Africans do, whereas Europeans and East Africans aren't fast in the sprints, but Americans do. So, okay, that makes sense.
Imagine like the Bizarro universe where, so if you say a sub 4 is equal to a 10-4, which is about what they say on those scoring tables, right? So imagine a country that didn't have a ton of like sprinting prowess losing their mind at their first sub 10-4 high school 100-meter runner. Like, how would we look at them, right? Like if our friends in Finland or something had like a 10th, he's only 18, he ran 10:39, we'd go, oh, cool.
Okay.
Congrats, I guess. But a long way to go.
I love to see Trayvon Bromel's reaction to those tweets. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, obviously Bolt's record is another couple tenths away, but this Knighton's only been running for a couple of years as well too, which is another reason to be optimistic. But yeah, still so young, plenty of time to go. But
where is he from? What state?
Florida.
Okay, so Mike Holloway's ready to go. Get him on scholarship.
Well, another point for the Florida versus Texas argument that Bromell was making.
I think they tweeted about that. It's like, where's he from? Like, as a joke.
Yeah,
it's like to try to prove his point.
No, it was an impressive run.
The Houston 4x1, or not like a school from Houston's the Houston Track Club's 4x1 ran like 40-0. So
yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Which is a legit time for us.
He's still got to. The good thing is he still has to improve to get to that level. So it's not like he's not going to get invites right now. I mean, even if this was a non-weird season, it's not like someone would try to put him in a big time meet right now because he's still not there. So he still has some work to do. And if he chips off another couple tenths, then he's in business. But yeah, I think we'll see him next year at the trials and see where he goes from there. I mean, remember 2016, Lyles made that final. That's where he set the high school record, 20 low, for Noah Lyles in the trials final. I mean, that was after his senior year, though. So this will be after Knighton's junior year. So not exactly the same scenario, but I mean, just goes to show you just how fast everybody is these days and how long phenoms at the top last. It's the next person up.
Do you think we also should take into account that 2033 by high school sophomore is even more impressive? The fact that he didn't have an outdoor season or a regular practice schedule, like he's doing it in the middle of a pandemic. So you would expect people to be more rusty. And if rusty sophomore is 20.33, what is ready to roll, in his prime, practicing and racing as a junior or senior, he should be much, much faster.
Well, you brought up burnout before, right? And one thing this can guarantee, at least from a meet perspective, this year, the race count was low. So
that's true.
Yeah, depending on the type of runner you are, maybe you don't need a bunch. Maybe you don't need a lot of races to get sharp. So in that case, you're not on tire. You didn't run the 4x4 all season for your high school team and the 4x1 and do the long jump and do the 100 and the 200. And he came back, he ran the 100, was solid there as well too. But man, I'm interested to see where he goes. Florida just always seems to have crazy fast high schoolers. Knighton, the next one. Keep an eye on him. Name to remember. Let's talk. Do you want to talk about On Running rolled out their entire squad? So we got the 8 members of the team. Remember, they had mentioned, or they had announced Klecker and Oliver Hoare before. So they add Alicia Monson, Jordy Beamish, Carlos Villarreal, Emily Oren, Leah Fallon, formerly Leah O'Connor, and who's the 8th one? Who am I missing here, Gordon? Trivia question. I lost count.
No, I do you want an honest answer? So here's the thing. During podcasts, when I know you're talking about something, sometimes
Alicia Konieczek.
And I'll just be looking at the internet. I was on Twitter while you were listing the names because I already knew the names, but yes. Yeah, so sorry.
Konieczek, Western Colorado, world championship steeplechaser for Poland. There you go. That's the 8 teams, or eight members of this On Athletics club coached by Ritz. What was your reaction?
Well, I think it's very unique to start a running group, pro running group, with exclusively first-year pros. 8. I mean, I guess technically,
Well, O'Connor's
Leo
not, and Oren's not.
Leo O'Connor, Folland, she's married now, is not. But you could argue that like the marquee group, which is like the big names, which you could say is Monson, Klecker, Beamish, Hoare, they're all first year pros.
Right.
So the question is like, who are they going to be? I guess they're going to be looking to their coach Dathan for how to, like, what is, like, you know, when you're a freshman in college or a freshman in high school and you go to practice for the first time, you kind of look into the seniors to be like, all right, what is the appropriate way to like to act on a team, right? And you learn how to act on a high school team, you learn how to act on a college team, and I think you do need to learn how to act in a pro environment, right? With their no school backing, it's a lot more individual expectations on yourself. There's no one holding your hand. There's no one making sure you're eligible. It's all on you, right? And they will have Dathan, their head coach, to kind of to get them through what it's like to be a pro. But I think it's also it's gonna be weird not having a teammate who's like been there. You know, it's weird not gonna having like a 3-year pro who's like, okay, follow my lead, right? So that's my only thought about it. I mean, it's a unique idea. It's like, hey, let's start all from scratch, as opposed to like building off of one and another. Like, hey, let's just take the class of 2020 and put a running kit on them and see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's especially true. If you just look at just the 4 men, they all were in college earlier this year. 3 of them focus on the same event, the 1500, with Villarreal, Hoare, and Beamish. Klecker obviously can run a fast mile as well too. Ran it in 3:58 last week, but they're all new to this. What's interesting is those 4 guys internationally represent 4 different countries. So although they might be working towards the same event, you could have a situation where they could put multiple people in Olympics or world championships. And you go to the women's side of things, Konieczek, as I mentioned, for Poland, has already made a world championship team. So I think Ritz, you got to make sure he has his passport updated. I think he's going to be making a lot of trips to these global championships because somebody is going to be making teams from his squad, right? Oliver Hoare's 1500 last year was the 5th fastest Aussie time, right? Beamish, obviously, he could make it for New Zealand. Villarreal has already represented Mexico, got a Pan Am gold. And then, you know, you have Konieczek, like I mentioned. And then on the American side, Monson, Klecker, Oren, and Fallon. It is interesting, the women's side of those 4, 3 of them are steeplers. So they were like picking their spots very, very strategically. They're a Swiss-based company. Maybe that had something to do with it in terms of making sure the reach is international and not so American heavy. But what prior to this, we had 1 pro signing, right? Akins with Brooks Beasts.
Yeah.
That was it. And then basically On came in and took a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah. I do think it was a purposeful strategy though, to like, they realized they're like, hey, the more international athletes you have in your team, the more opportunity they are going to be to represent, to be Olympians. And would you rather have like 8 Americans who all make US finals, or 8 international people where 3 of them become Olympians, you know? And I think they value like, just like, you know, which I think it's a unique strategy. I mean, Villarreal, he's gonna make the Olympics for Mexico, right? You should assume that Beamish, I mean, it's just Beamish and Nick Willis, right, out there in New Zealand, right? There's no one other like big 1500 meter runner out there, so he can make it the Olympics. So I think On Running is thinking, hey, we have this unique opportunity to get all these 22 to 23-year-olds with the
Yeah.
high likelihood of being Olympians right away. Whereas, signing someone like Tyler Day, you're not going to get, he's not going to be an Olympian in 2021, but he might be an Olympian in 2024, right? If he develops right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're kind of looking like surefire, like Olympians in year one. And I think that's why they went international as opposed to going American, where, I mean, yes, they added Joe Klecker in there, but like, I think Joe Klecker is more like, hey, you got to have some American in there. And I think Joe Klecker is probably the one who's closest to be ready to compete at the next level. But I think they're looking at Klecker to be like, make the Olympics in 2024, and they're looking at everyone else, make the Olympics right away so that our
Yeah.
group can have credibility going into 2024.
Yeah, because if there's 24, 36, 48, whatever, what's the number for 1500 meters that they let in for the Olympics?
48,
48.
45,
Yeah.
45.
Okay. If Hoare, Beamish, and Villarreal make it, 3 of the 45 people will be in the same training group. That's pretty rare when it comes to and you could have a possibility where Klecker somehow makes the team as well too, maybe not in the 1500, but yeah, getting that many people into the meet, into the Olympics or into the World Championships from one group is exceedingly rare. And you're right, probably by design. Again, I'm interested in see how Ritz is as a coach. Monson, I think in the same position, wouldn't you say, as Klecker, as like needs another step up to get to that Olympic level, Olympic trials qualifying level, especially with where the women's 5,000 has gone for the United States in the last about year. But if you're picking people out of this class, she'd be near the top. I don't know, where did she go in our draft? That was so long ago, I don't remember. But
I don't know. She's probably top 10. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
Monson and Klecker are more just like victims of US being so good, not as opposed to them not being as good as their teammates. Like,
yeah,
you could argue that Klecker and Monson might be the top 2 talent wise, but because
yeah,
Monson has to try to beat out Shelby Houlihan and Christian Schweizer, it's like a lot more hard. And like Klecker has got to go up against a Lopez Lamong and Paul Chelimo. It's like, okay,
yeah.
just to make the team, whereas the other guys don't and girls don't.
But they'll make U.S. finals, and they'll be in they'll be in the Olympic trials, and that will give them visibility because they'll be wearing the jersey. The other thing is, like with Beamish and Hoare, like I don't know how big they are on social media, but those guys both have pretty big personalities as well too. I don't know how much that factored into it. Obviously, if you're not fast, you don't even start to consider those things. But the fact that like the American audience knows them a little bit, the American running audience is familiar with them, as compared to like if there was just someone who ran the exact same times as Oliver Hoare, but just stayed in Australia, we wouldn't in the United States, we would not be aware of that person. But so they have the best of both worlds in a way of this American audience is aware of them, but they also are from a different country where they have a lot of support there as well too. I'm interested to see how it works. I mean, they're obviously investing a ton of money into running right now.
Yeah, you gotta like it, right? I mean, see what happens. And it's good for the class of 2020, right? We were talking about this. Like, what is the class of 2020 going to have to deal with the pandemic signing world, right? Like, all these great athletes, it wasn't their choice to be born this year, 22 years ago, so that they're part of the class that their first year pro is without track, right? So we thought like our company's going to pull back and not invest in this next generation of athletes, and you would wonder like, hey, are they going to get the short end of the stick? And luckily so far, I mean, the fact that On Running did this on this time has helped out the Beamishes and Kleckers of this world. And then you still have Aikens getting signed by Brooks. You have Danny Jones. She's not signed, but she is likely to get signed, and she's in a group, and I'm assuming maybe she might get signed in 2021. I don't know, but we're assuming it's New Balance. I don't know. I guess the only big name out there that hasn't been signed. No, I'm just assuming because she's with all New Balance people. But maybe she'll do Adidas or something like that. That's a good point. I don't know. But Danny Jones is going to get signed. She's too good not to be. She has an agent, right? I guess, is there the only other big distance name that hasn't been signed to an agent or to a sponsor, I guess, is Tyler Day, right?
Well, we don't know
else?
who's coming back even. Nobody's actually a senior, right? The only people we know would be people from the Ivy League who didn't transfer because they weren't given that 5th year. And we know Wisconsin wasn't going to give an extra year. So Monson and Hoare would have had to transfer if they wanted to.
Oh, yeah, because everyone still has an outdoor year, right?
Right. So, like, Beamish could have come back. Villarreal could have come back. Klecker could have come back. The only person there would have been Hoare, but Hoare could have transferred and used his year somewhere else. So it's tough to answer that question because we don't even know who the pool of people are.
Yeah. Well, I guess you'd assume Tyler Day, but he's already a 5th year, so I think it's like if 5th years coming back for 6 years is a lot more rare than 4th years coming back for 5th years. And now with cross country likely being almost gone,
but do you
even more uncertainty,
Yeah, but if you don't have cross anyway, right? Yeah. Do you stay and hope that the economic situation around sponsorships picks up next year, even if it means going to an extra year of school, or do you take a lesser deal right now and forego that last year and not have to deal with school?
Yeah. I mean, because Tyler Day would be the NCAA favorite, right?
Oh, 100%. 100%. He'd be the number one guy coming out. Well, I guess is Kurgat coming back?
I don't know. If Kurgat doesn't come back, Day would be the 5K favorite, wouldn't he?
Well, here's the thing. You could this is what I'm saying. You could copy and paste what we thought was going to happen outdoors and for next year, if it happens. Nothing would change. You take out people, you take Aikens out, you take Monson, et cetera, out, because now there's been some people going pro. But if nobody wanted to go pro, some people would have switched around teams and transferred, but everybody would have been back. You could have recreated that exact meet outdoors. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I wonder if Day comes back. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing like Taylor Warner.
Yeah.
Same thing with her. It's like she could come back and she'd be, along with Kaladi, maybe co-favorites for the track season. But, we just don't know what's going to go on between now and then. Nobody does. We're almost out of time. I wanted to get your opinion on this NCAA stuff. The MAC canceled football over the weekend. I just searched Twitter when you were talking because I found out that's what you do when I talk, and wanted to make sure that I wasn't paying attention to you, because that's what makes a good podcast. And I don't know, there's all sorts of people. Don't just throw me under
the bus like that, right in front of my face. Damn.
This is what Dan Patrick says, noted sports talk show host. He says that, according to Brett McMurphy, who's quoting Dan Patrick, I'll just read his tweet. I'll read Brett McMurphy's tweet. Dan Patrick reports Big Ten had internal vote, and by a 12-2 margin, league members opted of not having fall football season. Nebraska and Iowa were only schools that voted to play it this fall. Patrick said Big Ten and Pac-12 would cancel fall season Tuesday, but the SEC still wants to play. So it sounds like this is me now talking, this is no longer a tweet about a radio show. People are saying that the SEC is going to try to convince the Big 12 and the ACC to play. I don't.
Well, I think the whole thing is Big Ten wants out, but Big Ten wants everyone to go out with them, right? That's what they're trying to do. And so that's why it wasn't announced today. That's why they're trying to use Monday as a day to get everyone on board for Tuesday announcement. But, I mean, what are your thoughts, though? I mean, Trevor Lawrence has been tweeting a lot. What are your thoughts on the take that athletes are actually safer being in a strict COVID protocol season than they are just staying home in their regular lives?
I don't entirely understand it, because they wouldn't be asked to leave campus if there's no games. They could still stay, right?
Yeah, but if you're a 18 to 22-year-old who is told by a coach, hey, you need to be focused for these next 4 months where you're going to be following all these rules and you're going to be coming to practice. You're going to be exercising. You're going to be staying healthy. And we're also going to be keeping you tested and all that stuff versus season's over. Now I'm just going to live my life and maybe be more prone to want to go to parties, more prone to want to just be laid back and live my life as a 20-year-old where I have no pressure from a coach telling me what to do and what not to do. Like, there is something about having a coaching environment around you that kind of forces you to live a more strict lifestyle than if there's no coach who says, like, season's over, it's off season. You're going to be more willing to be more wild and just not as stringent with your lifestyle. Wouldn't you say that, though? Right? Like, athletes are like, are disciplined, right? They're going to be more likely to be more disciplined than not, right? I don't know.
Right. But I would hope that discipline would extend beyond this and they would see the importance of the situation and not necessarily need that carrot right in front of them. And if they are, so the MAC is talking about spring, and let's put aside whether or not it would be possible in the spring, or feasible in the spring. But I mean, that could be an incentive. Stay on campus. You can still use the facilities, and let's try again then. I don't know. Like, I get what you're saying, but I would think that there's some sort of middle ground. The problem is the difference between football and cross country is the act of playing one sport is a lot more difficult in terms of virus transmission than the other. So it's like so they could be doing everything. They could be doing a lot of things right, but the sheer act of playing football is risky just because the amount of contact. Cross country, it's different. Now, we don't live in a world where cross country can just operate. If cross country was football right now, right, in terms of money making, like if we lived in a world where cross country brought in tens of millions of dollars and you were like Kirk Herbstreit, like you were the Kirk Herbstreit of college sports because cross country was that important. I think we'd see more movement for it happening just because the act of it going on isn't as risky.
I think,
but we don't live in that world. We live in the world where,
I think
I still think it's gonna be all or nothing. Like you asked me last week, I still think it's gonna be all or nothing. Everybody's gonna do it or nobody's gonna do it. That's just the way it's gonna be.
And I think the reason why now Big Ten is now swaying towards not doing it is because of this factor, which I talked to a coach, not in a Big Ten coach, but a prominent distance coach, whatever, my sources. And he said the ultimate thing that the schools want is no liability. Because think about this. They care. I don't think they it's not about caring about the health. It's about caring about the image of keeping their health, right? And I think that if a college kid if a regular college student goes to a party and gets COVID, it's the responsibility is on that athlete. It's not connected to anyone being responsible. But if a college football player goes to a party and gets COVID, all of a sudden it's going to be on the college football program, on the university. And I can't believe you let this student get COVID. It's the end of the world. We're suing you for millions and millions of dollars. And and I think the NCAA made an announcement last week saying that like schools can't make athletes sign a waiver saying responsibility of getting COVID is on you. Like,
right. Because this goes back to the idea of amateurism.
Yeah,
it's why you can make NFL and NBA players do one thing and you can't with college. Yeah. This is the system that's been created. Yeah.
Which is kind of funny that the same situation can happen, but if the person just happens to be a student athlete, all of a sudden the landscape becomes it's the school's fault versus the student's fault, right? And you'll be able to because you will never be able to prove that it was from the party versus from practice, right? And so I think schools want, because when you go to Disney World, on the back of their ticket, you're saying if you get COVID, it's not Disney World's fault. Like you're agreeing to their terms, saying like you're coming here on your own risk, knowing that there's a pandemic going on. You are choosing to take the risk of potentially getting COVID in exchange for the reward of living in Magic Kingdom, whatever, right? They can't. That's what Disney's able to do. That's why how they're able to have Disney World, right? But a school can't say you are taking the risk of getting COVID with the reward of being part of a college football team. They're not allowed to have that
Right.
deal. And I think because schools can't have that deal, they're like, well, no matter what, we're going to lose because someone's going to get it, and everyone's going to think we just murdered children, which isn't what's happening. But, so I think that's why it's going to get canceled now. It's because they can't have that liability taken away from them.
I saw the MAC announcement was interesting because they were saying, well, everybody canceled their games because they went conference only. So that leaves us without any of these pay games. And then also the fact if we can't have fans in the stands, it doesn't make any sense financially for us to keep going. They didn't really go that deep into the health of it. It was more logistics and finances for the MAC, which I get that from the other season. I mean, maybe they'll say this. Maybe they'll say this. They're not going to say this, but maybe they would say this. Maybe they're going to say this. They're going to announce, hey, and the reason they're not going to say this is because they're not all going to get on the same page. These 5 conferences right now clearly are almost like there's a schism between them, even more so. But maybe they'd say, hey, we're going to cancel it now, and we're going to do it, and we're going to start hell or high water on March 1st, and we're going to spend the next whatever amount of months. We're going to hire Adam Silver. We're going to create a bubble, and we're not going to say, hey, the college campus needs to be open, and there needs to be classes for us to have college football. We're going to do our own stuff. It's going to be all online, and we're going to have a process and procedure that mimics the NBA. And we are going to spend $190 million per conference to make sure that everything can be safe and we're all going to agree to the same protocols, and we're going to have a 12-game season, and this is when it's going to start, and this is what's going to end, and we're going to take the next 5 months to set that up. They're not going to do that, but I think that's what it would take in order to guarantee a spring season.
Yeah. I mean, it's not possible to do bubble, right? Because bubble requires billions of dollars and like Disney giving you hotels carte blanche just to live in.
You create each university creates their own bubble,
yeah.
Right? And you have independent. Again, this is totally not going to happen, but and it's not naive to say, but it's like you have independent oversight, so people can go and observe. There's people from the NCAA or whoever. There's some third party who comes and they observe, and if you have bubble violations, then you forfeit games. And then you travel exclusively on charter, and you arrive at these games, and you have to go through all the protocols and the negative tests again. They could do it. There's a number. It would be extremely expensive, but they could do it.
Yeah. I was thinking, remember a few weeks ago when they're like, oh, MLB is trying to do it without a bubble, and then Marlins all got COVID, and everyone's like, it's over, cancel the season. They kept going, right? They found a way to deal with the outbreak in Marlins and in the Cardinals. Yes, they had to postpone
then the Cardinals just postpone them again.
Yeah, Cardinals are still postponing, but the season's still going on. I mean, when you have 28 of the 30 teams still being able to get their games in, that's a good success rate, right? They're able to at least. You would think that once one and it's over and they're going to shut the whole thing down, but they're able to. We were talking MLB is canceled 2 weeks ago, but now everyone's just assuming MLB isn't canceled. It's just still happening, right? So,
well, they're pushing through, but I mean they already were starting with a low bar of we're doing 60 games.
Yeah,
that's our we're already doing less than a third of our season. I mean, I don't know. I guess people just need to be honest, and it's tough because. If you wanted to do a bubble in college, then you're asking somebody who's not paid to go through this, but you're going to have to, if that's what they, maybe the whole player empowerment thing is interesting too, but that's a whole other topic for another pod. We can go into that later.
Well, it's just it's going to be hard to have player empowerment when your leader is not going to be part of your empowerment group
graduating
by April 2021 because he'll be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. It's
Yeah, and then there'll be a new one. Yeah, no, exactly. That's a good point. All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks to Alon for producing FloTrack Podcast at gmail.com. Gordon and I will be back next week. We miss you, Lincoln. Until next time.
Oh, our producer forgot to sign us off. We're still live. Our producer walked away.
Wake up, Alon. Where are you? There it is.